Hey everyone, and welcome back to another installation video brought to you by Rockford Fosgate. As always, I'm Rico Felice with the Rockford Technical Training Institute, and in this video, we're going to take a look at the installation of some of our new Harley-Davidson motorcycle-specific products. So let's go inside our R&D department and see how these products are installed on the motorcycles. All right guys, I am now joined by Brad with our new product development team, and he's going to walk us through the installation process of our new front upper fairing audio kit for the 2014 Plus Street Glide motorcycle. So Brad, what all is included in our kit?
We include a pair of TMS65 speakers, our RFK HD Amplifier Installation kit, and a Power Series TM400X4AD amplifier.
Okay, so that takes care of the front end. I see this bike also has the rear Tour-Pak speakers included. Are we going to be doing an upgrade on those as well?
Yes, we're also going to add in another pair of TMS65s for the rear Tour-Pak.
Okay, and those are separate from the front kit?
Yes, they are separate, so we're going to add them with the kit.
All right, so that pretty much covers that. Let's go ahead and get started and see how this kit goes in. All right guys, so now we're ready to start the front speaker installation on our motorcycle. So Brad, what's the first thing that we want to do?
The first thing we're going to want to do is protect parts of the bike from any damage during this installation. So we're going to grab a couple rags, protect our lights, and our front fender.
Okay.
Now that we've done that, we can start by removing the screws on the windshield and the fairing.
All right.
The first thing we're going to do is going to take our T27 Torx driver and remove the 4 fairing screws located here and over here.
All right, so now that we have those screws removed, we can go ahead and finish the disassembly process by removing the 3 screws across the top of the fairing. This is going to allow us to remove the windshield assembly from the bike and then complete the disassembly.
Now what you want to do is leave the 3rd screw a little loose. Do not remove it because it'll allow you to keep the fairing on while you remove the windshield.
All right, so with the front fairing rotated forward, we can gain access to disconnect the headlight power harness.
While supporting the fairing with one hand, reach behind and unplug the headlight. Now that we've removed the plug from the headlight, we can now remove the fairing.
All right guys, so now that we've got the front fairing removed, we've gained access to the front speaker pods where the factory speakers are located. Obviously, to be able to replace these and put our new speakers in, we're going to have to take the pods out of the bike. Now these are held in with the different types of hardware. So Brad, what do we need to remove and what tools do we need to use to be able to get the pods out?
You're going to start by removing the 3 outer screws on the pod, located here, here, and here, using our 3/16 Allen driver.
All right.
Once those are removed, we can take out the 2 upper screws using our 5/32 Allen driver that are located here and here.
All right.
Then we can move on to the 3 lower screws that are held in with a 7/16 bolt. Now to do those, we're going to use a short swivel socket.
Okay, well that doesn't look like a typical off-the-shelf tool that a lot of guys have. Is this something special that we've acquired?
Yes, I found this online. It's a short socket that's able to get in there a little tighter.
Okay, now most of the guys might not have this, so are they going to be able to also do the same job with standard hand tools?
You can. You can actually use a box wrench and a combination of some other sockets and swivels.
All right, so obviously we also have a lot of harnesses and plugs up here at the front end of the bike. Are we going to need to remove anything or move anything to make the job easier?
Yes, definitely. There is a lot of harnesses that are in front of the screws that makes it difficult to get to. So what we're going to use is a panel tool and a hook tool to help remove the harnesses as we go.
Okay, now obviously there are a lot of different bikes, a lot of different configurations. Is there anything special that we need to pay attention to or anything unusual?
With this bike in particular, we have a communications device that we're going to have to remove along the way. Depending on the features and options your bike came with, it may have some other devices as well and harnesses.
Okay, and is there anything special that we need to be able to take the communication module out?
In this case, we're going to use a T25 Torx driver to remove that.
Okay, well then let's go ahead and move on and start the disassembly process. All right, so now that we have the speaker pod removed, we've gained access to the factory grille. What we're going to do is remove this factory grille and replace it with the one that came in the speaker kit. To do this, we'll remove the 3 factory screws that hold it in place. We'll hold on to these because we're going to use those to mount the new grille.
When mounting the new grills, you will notice that there is a brake and clutch side. When installing these, you want to make sure that the tab with the notch is mounted with the lower inside screw.
Once we get these grills in place, we'll move over and install the new speakers in the speaker pods.
Now that we have the pods on the bench, we can remove the 4 screws that hold the factory speaker in place.
Now you'll notice as you're removing the speakers, there is an alignment tab that locates the proper position of the factory speaker. This tab will also align with the holes located in the back of the speaker frame. All right, so now that we have the new speakers installed in the speaker pods, we're ready to go ahead and reinstall them into the bike. All right, so now that we have the pods reinstalled on the motorcycle, as well as the harnesses reconnected, we can go ahead and do a full system checkout on the bike, including the new speakers. Okay guys, so now that we've checked out all the functions of the motorcycle to make sure that they're working properly, we're ready to move on to the installation of the amplifier. So Brad, obviously the amplifier is going to be mounted up here in the fairing area. What do we need to prep or remove to be able to get the amp in?
Well, to put the amplifier in, we're going to need to make some room. We're going to start by removing the upper vent by removing the two T25 screws located here and here. Once that is removed, we can now remove our two wiring harnesses here, move them to the back side of the radio with a couple zip ties. In this case, we have a GPS antenna that we're also going to move up into this ledge here.
Okay.
Once that is out of the way, we can now remove the four T25 screws located on the top of the radio and move those out of the way because we'll not be using those later.
Okay, well let's go ahead and get that done and prep for the amp. Alright guys, so now that we have the area cleared out, we're ready to mount the amplifier plate. Brad, is there anything else we need to do before we bolt this guy down?
Yes, we need to install the four spacers that was included with the kit to the top of the radio, so when we mount the plate to it, we have a little bit of clearance.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Get this guy in. Alright, once the spacers are in place, we're ready to mount the heat sink utilizing the four 3mm Allen head screws provided. Alright guys, so now that we have the amplifier plate mounted in the bike, we're ready to go ahead and install the amplifier. Now on the plate, we've pre-marked the location of the mounting holes for the amplifier that we're using, which is the TM400X4AD.
To mount the amplifier, we're going to use the four included screws using a 2.5mm Allen driver. Now that we have the amplifier mounted, we can begin the process of running the power and ground wire harness to the battery. To do this, we'll have to remove the seat and fuel tank.
Now this kit also comes with a rear speaker wiring harness in the event that you have the rear Tour-Pak speakers installed. As you can see, this bike does, so we're going to route that wire along with the power and ground harness to be able to hook those speakers up to the amplifier. If you're only doing a front speaker install and don't have the Tour-Pak speakers installed, you don't normally have to run this wiring harness.
To begin the process, we're going to start by removing the rear seat using a number 3 Phillips screwdriver.
Okay, so now that we have the seat out of the way, we've exposed all the mounting hardware and electrical connections for the gas tank. So to remove the gas tank, there are 2 bolts at the front of the gas tank that we'll need to remove on either side. We have 2 bolts here at the back of the gas tank, 2 electrical harnesses here over the top of the battery, as well as a vent tube and an overflow tube that we'll need to pull up through the chassis. Additionally, we'll have to remove the gas line from the bottom of the tank. This will allow us to lift the gas tank off and set it aside.
With the fuel line disconnected, we can now remove the gas tank.
Now that we have the gas tank out of the way, we can go ahead and remove our ECM module, set it aside, and then we'll remove these two 1/2-inch bolts to remove the battery cover, giving us access to the battery terminals.
We're now ready to remove the cover to the factory wiring channel to give us access to run our wires.
Okay, so now that we have our wire channel exposed, we have a pathway to be able to route our power and ground wire to the battery, as well as the rear speaker harness that we discussed earlier. As I said, in the event your bike doesn't have rear speakers, there is not a need to run this harness at this point in time. Typically, you're only going to be routing the power and ground. So we'll go ahead and put that in now. All right, so as we pass the wire down from the fairing and route it through the channel, we're running the power and ground wire along the clutch side because our power connection at the amplifier is also on the clutch side. For the speaker wire harness, we're going to route those down the brake side, as the speaker wires themselves are pre-terminated to a specific length for the clutch and brake side rear speaker. All right, so now that we have the power and ground harness ran across the backbone, we can go ahead and make the battery connections with our wire and then button this area back up. The fuse holder, we're going to simply tuck down in front of the battery itself into this small compartment area. This will help keep it protected and out of the way. Now with the battery connections made, we can go ahead and replace the battery cover. Okay, so now that we have the battery connections made and the battery cover back in place, we're ready to go ahead and connect our rear speakers and get those replaced with the new ones.
We're going to start removing the speakers using our T10 Torx driver.
Now remember, this kit originally comes with just a front speaker set. We're adding the rear speakers in this case as an option because this bike has them installed. If you do not have rear speakers installed, you can go ahead and skip ahead in the video to the next part. All right, so now that we have the rear speakers removed, we need to be able to make room for our new wires to pass into the speaker enclosures. To do this, we're going to remove the factory grommets from each side. Once the grommet's removed from the enclosure, we want to slice through with a razor knife blade, be able to remove it from the factory harness. This will allow us to open it up to then be able to put our wires in it along with the factory harness and reinstall it. Next, we're going to go ahead and pass our rear speaker wires into the factory enclosure through the hole. Once we have the wires in the enclosure, we can make the connections with the factory speaker wires to pass the signal up to the amplifier. Once you have the wire connections made, you want to go ahead and reinstall the grommet over all of your wiring. Slide it up to the pod and reinstall it in the hole.
With our speaker wire connections made and the grommets reinstalled, we can now move on to installing our speakers.
Alright, so now at this point we're ready to make the last audio connections to the bike, then we can go ahead and make the connections to the amplifier. To do this, we need to connect the input and output audio signals to the amplifier at the front speaker pods. This is done using the front speaker connector.
When installing the connectors, take note to the labels we provide designating brake side and clutch side.
Okay, so now that we have made the electrical and speaker connections at the amplifier, we're ready to go ahead and make the final electrical connection, which is the remote wire. Now the remote wire is what tells the amplifier to turn on and off, and we make this connection at this extra plug located at the top of the fairing. With that done, now we're ready to go ahead, turn the system on, set the amplifier, and make sure everything else is working properly.
We can start by setting our front and rear gains to the 12 o'clock position. Next, set the EQ to minimum. Set your amp to 2-channel input. Set both crossover frequencies to 80 Hz and both switches to high pass or HP.
Now that we have those adjustments made, you'll be able to do a full checkout on the bike system, make sure the audio is working properly as well as all other functions of the motorcycle. At that point, you're ready to go through and start zip tying up all the loose cables. For best performance of your new Rockford audio system, we recommend having your radio flash to produce a flat audio output. Contact your local Rockford dealer for more details on getting this done. Alright guys, so now that we have all the wiring zip tied and neat and clean, we're ready to go ahead and start reassembling the bike and get it back on the road. Alright guys, so as you can see, it was a pretty simple install. Hopefully you were able to follow along and got some good tips out of it. Brad, is there anything you'd like to add before we close up?
Well, if you have any questions before, during, or after the installation, feel free to give our tech guys a call. They'll be more than happy to help you out.
And as always, guys, remember you can always find out more information on our website on this as well as our other products, so make sure you check that out as well. And hopefully you got everything you needed out of this, and we'll see you again in another video.